Welcome to the Recess Life Podcast. This is the place where we explore play and what it means to get back to your inner child. I'm Louise, your host. Join me as I chat with teachers, entrepreneurs, artists, and thought leaders about how we can live a life of more play and impact. Let's get it started. What's up, everyone? Here to bring you another episode of this special series of the Recess Life Podcast, Play and Creativity in Uncertain Times. Now, you may be asking yourself, what uncertain times are you talking about? Especially if you are listening to this outside of the time frame of when it was recorded, which is April 2020. And that is the global pandemic we are in called COVID-19, otherwise known as coronavirus. It has changed our world completely right now and likely forever. It has changed everything about the way we connect and work and play, which is why I wanted to do this special series. I wanted to talk to other creatives about how they are specifically dealing with this time, how they are thinking about play and creativity differently if they are. How are they staying joyful and playful and creative during this time? Or are they perhaps taking a step back, which is totally fine? Myself, personally, I've had a lot of ups and downs. My default is to always be doing, to always be productive, always be delivering something. And with my work stopping as an event producer, I have not had those built-in deliverables that I am supposed to produce every day. So I've had to be really cognizant about creating what that looks like each and every day. And doing these conversations have been a great outlet, but that still leaves me with a lot of time each day. And it's been challenging some days to feel like I'm doing enough and to love and accept myself when I feel like I haven't done as much as I would have liked. It's also been challenging to stop and think, what am I doing to fill the time versus doing something that's actually meaningful? It's been very challenging, and there's a lot of conflict back and forth that I go through each day in order to get through it. And a lot of times I don't resolve that, but I just do my best. So each day has some similarities with a little bit of variance. I make sure I work out or move my body each day. I try to connect with at least one friend, whether that's over a text or a call or a Zoom call. And I have a number of creative things that I try to do. And lately that's been having these conversations, producing TikTok videos. This is not my first time that I've talked about TikTok. It's a new creative app that I just love. And it's really spurred my creativity in a way that I didn't expect. I love just browsing on the app and seeing how other people are being creative because it really inspires my ideas of what I could do. So I've been doing a lot of playful, inspirational tips. I've been doing some music and dance on there. It's been quite the experiment. I'm really enjoying it, and that's been keeping me going in a lot of ways. There's some variance to my days, but I try to keep those things consistent, and sometimes even doing those things are challenging, and I have to accept that that's just the way I feel today, and to perhaps be okay with not producing like I normally would. For those of you whose work has been severely impacted, I'm sure you can relate to that. So be gracious with yourself and really sit and ask yourself, what do you need today? It might be that you just need to rest, that you just need to take it easy and to not put pressure on yourself to be productive. And I know that has been very helpful for me in times where I can't push myself anymore. So I hope that you will be kind with yourself during this time, and that most of all, you're staying healthy, because that's what is most important. Today, I have my friend Chris Luecke on the podcast. Chris and I met about 5 years ago at the World Domination Summit, a conference in Portland, Oregon, for people who want to live a remarkable life in an unconventional world. So, as you can imagine, there are a lot of creatives and interesting people that attend this conference. I've met so many dear, wonderful friends, and I'm so I've met so many dear, wonderful friends from that conference, and Chris is one of them. Chris himself has 2 podcasts that he hosts, Pubcast Worldwide and Manufacturing Happy Hour. We talked about how he is choosing to step up as a leader, and it really provided me inspiration to think about how I can step up to be a leader for the people in my life and the community that I'm a part of, because it's really easy to think that I can't do much during this time. What can I really contribute? Who can I really serve? But we all have people that we can serve. We all have a community around us, whether we believe it or not. So I really loved that Chris shared about what he is doing and inspired me to think about how I can do that for myself. We also talked about how, like me, he is an extrovert and how he has found an outlet for that. One really creative outlet that he has found is so relevant, timely, and serves a greater good. I'm not even going to tell you about it because you really have to listen to the episode to understand what I'm talking about. But let me just tell you, if you have been watching a show called Tiger King on Netflix, this is definitely going to resonate with you. So enjoy this conversation with Chris Luecke. If you want to learn more about him, you can check out his podcast, Manufacturing Happy Hour, and Pubcast Worldwide. I'll also put links to his social media and any relevant websites on the show notes at therecesslife.com. Enjoy this conversation with Chris.
I'm warmed up. I'm ready for this, Louise.
We ready to go. All right. Hey, everyone who's joining us live on Facebook and Instagram, good afternoon. For those of you that know me, I'm Louise, obviously. I have a podcast called The Recess Life. It is one of my greatest joys, and when this whole crisis hit, I felt really conflicted as to how I was going to talk about the topic that I talk about in The Recess Life, which is play and creativity, and why it's important to maintain that in our lives, even as we grow up and become old and adult-like. So I really stepped back and took a pause and decided that I really needed to just connect with friends, some old friends, some new friends, people that I really consider creative and playful in their own way and in their own life. And to talk to them about how they are dealing with this time, how they are thinking about creativity, how they're thinking about play. And so I thought I'd just have these conversations for my own sake, really, and to broadcast them live to see who wants to join in on the conversation. If any of you have a question during this conversation that I'm about to have, feel free to type it in our Facebook, on the Facebook Live, as well as, or the Instagram Live if you're watching there. So that's my little intro spiel. But today I have my friend Chris Luecke, who we've known each other for, I guess, a few years now, right? Like
we're coming up on 5, because I think we met at our first World Domination Summit in my first in 2015. So yep. It's been a minute. Like, and time's been flying by.
It really is. Yeah, I think my first year was 2014, so it would have been my second year when we met at your first one. But yeah, that has been, it's crazy how much time has flown by, and a lot has happened since then.
Yes, I had literally just moved to the Bay Area, and I thought it was cool that I had met a fellow Bay Area person as well. I think you were probably the first person from San Francisco that I had met at that event. So it was good to see some Bay Area spillage up into Portland during that event.
Amazing. I feel so special. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
You are special, Louise. That's why we're here today.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for joining me today, Chris. You have your own podcasts, plural, I should say, but you have a variety of things you do. And so when this crisis started, when coronavirus started, what were you doing with your time? What were you focused on creatively? And what were you working on?
Yeah, so I'll fill in a couple gaps for anyone that's hearing this that doesn't know me yet. So I do a few things. Like you said, I do a couple podcasts. I do one that's called Pubcast Worldwide, which is focused on drinking the best craft beers at the best bars and breweries with some of the most interesting people on the planet. So that podcast has been to 5 different continents, over 10 different countries, exploring craft beer, and I should say drinking culture in general around the world. It's that's kind of a tough podcast to do when you're grounded and you're not traveling in a lot of ways. What I'm doing with that right now is I'm actually getting some older content out from Romania and Poland and some other spots there in the meantime. So that's kind of taken a back seat recently a little bit. There are some creative things I'm working on to figure out what does the Pubcast look like in the middle of COVID-19. So for anyone listening, stay tuned on that. But some of the biggest things I was doing before this started was my other show is Manufacturing Happy Hour. It's a show where in the manufacturing industry, we talk about the biggest trends and technologies that are impacting modern manufacturers through interviews with industry leaders, typically over a cold one, to make the conversation a little more casual. You're probably sensing a theme in the type of work that I do. And the reason I do that is very pragmatic. My full-time job is actually an account manager in the automation space. So the easiest way to describe what I do full-time is with a company called Rockwell Automation, where we provide the technology, the information systems, control systems that really act as the nervous system of a manufacturing facility. We tell a motor when to go on and off. We help manufacturers make decisions around how do I get more productivity out of this piece of equipment, whether it's, let's say in this case, I mean, food manufacturing is big right now. They're pumping on all cylinders because everyone's going to the grocery store right now. So it would be like, how do we get this many more potato chips through our process in an hour? Like, how do we increase that by 10%? The easiest way to describe what I do, though, is if you've seen the show How It's Made, people love factory tours and things like that, and seeing how a car is manufactured, how, beer is brewed and things along those lines. And the way I describe it is I live that show every day, looking at those processes, helping with all the automation, the things that help that process run automatically. I help with all the information and controls behind that process. So back to the original question on the podcast, I came up with Manufacturing Happy Hour as a way to talk about trends that happen in that industry in a way that I wasn't really seeing going on in that space. And it was a fun, more approachable way to do it where, I think a lot of people, this is a bit of a generalization, but I think when people think of the manufacturing industry, they think about Rust Belt, they think about old school, they think about a more senior workforce maybe, but the reality
assembly lines.
Exactly. But there's, I'd say thanks to Elon Musk in part, there's a lot of manufacturing is synonymous with tech these days. But no one was really doing manufacturing podcasts. So I found a way to kind of make it more approachable, make it a little more casual, make it a little more playful for, to fit the term of your show, and created that a few years ago. So I was really working, I was doing my beer podcast, I was doing Manufacturing Happy Hour, I was doing my full-time job, all of that pre-COVID. And to be honest, all of that's continuing in some way, shape, or form. It's just, I've just had to pivot a little bit in many capacities.
Yeah, I love that you decided to do a podcast about something like manufacturing, because that is an industry or a part of our world that's obviously really important. Our world runs on manufacturing, right?
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways, they have not been talked about in a very modern way, and there's not sort of any modern storytelling around that industry. So you really saw an opportunity to do that, which I think is really cool in your own little playful way.
And I think to build on that also, I can highlight something that did change, is that since the show is called Manufacturing Happy Hour, it was a real natural way to do actual happy hours, actual social events with industry leaders. We've done live podcasts. We did just general networking events for leaders in the manufacturing industry to come together. Obviously, with COVID-19 and the closing of all bars, restaurants, and any type of social gathering, can't do that anymore. So I had to pivot to doing a number of virtual events, which has been something new and I would say equally rewarding that has come out of all of this as well.
That's awesome. So your podcasts, were they all done in person before, both Manufacturing Happy Hour and Pubcast Worldwide?
For the most part, yeah. Pubcast has always been an in-person show since it was really, there was a diners, drive-ins, and dives element to it, or a Bourdain element to it, whatever you want to call it. It's like there was something about being in that actual bar where the first question of every interview is always, it's like, all right, we're hanging out here in, let's say, a bar in Portland, Oregon, for example. Describe the setting, and the guest would paint the picture of where we are, whether it was divey, whether it was really posh, whatever it might be. Describe the drink in front of us, whether it's a hoppy IPA or an elegantly crafted cocktail, whatever it was. So the live element was really important about that. So yeah, most of the shows were live. I definitely, especially with manufacturing happy hour, which is where a lot of my focus is, that's gone to a totally remote format, which we found ways to work with it, even in the in-person setting.
That's great. Yeah. Was there any sort of panic, I guess, or any sort of discomfort around knowing that you wouldn't be able to do those in-person interactions and pivoting to a virtual format? Any worry about how that would work and how that was going to be received, I guess, by the manufacturing community?
Yeah, I think it was just more of a matter of kind of dealing with reality and setting the expectations. One thing I've done on my recent manufacturing happy hour interviews is, a big goal of that show is to simplify some of the technologies that I feel like our industry makes more complicated than they need to be sometimes. So my first question on that show is always like, hey, say we're hanging out at a bar in Brooklyn or wherever the guest is from. Describe what you do in simple terms, like the way you'd be describing it to someone at a bar. So I'm still able to like weave in those elements. I don't think there's been any judgment around it. And I think the fact that doing these virtual happy hours has become such a big thing, because if I look at what the manufacturing industry has done, a lot of people are shifting to doing virtual sales calls and things like that, or virtual webinars where it's like an educational opportunity for someone to come in. But that lacks some of the group interaction, and it lacks the playfulness that like doing a happy hour would. So a big focus that I'm doing right now has been, let's bring a group together over Zoom and have not only a good conversation around a topic in our industry that's impacting all of us, but let's have some fun. Let's talk about what we're drinking. Like, we'll make the webinars, or not webinars, but the happy hours are like, 4 in the afternoon or so. So it's like, hey, it's the end of the day. It's like you're cracking a beer, you're just cracking it at home instead of at a bar. So to go back to your original question, was there a lot of panic? I don't want to oversimplify it, but to me, it was kind of like, I guess not as much as maybe some people, because I'd been kind of building a digital manufacturing brand for about 3 years, kind of preparing for this moment without knowing what this moment was, but preparing for this moment in some ways. So it was less of a panic, and it's like, all right, Chris, this is what you've been working towards for a long time. It's really time to double down and, show folks what this is made of. Yeah.
And I love that you really took the opportunity to step up as a leader in a lot of ways, with this crisis that's happening. You saw an opportunity to bring people together and be the person that connects everyone, so that they can get through this hard time together, and you can help build that community. Because I think whenever we are all going through something tough, we crave that community, and we crave those people that can go through this with us. And so you are that connector. And I think that's something that we can all learn and think about for ourselves. How can we find our people? How can we be a leader and step up and be that person for other people?
Well, Louise, you brought another great thought to mind. So thank you for doing that. I think a big part that, as someone that is ultimately in sales in many shapes and forms, like, now is not necessarily the perfect time to be selling per se, but it is a great time to be building community. It is a great time to be showing concern for your audience, for your customers, whatever it is, and being a connector. And really, if you can, think long term of, this isn't going to last forever. Things will be different after we come out of this. But what can you give in this scenario is really the big question I've been asking myself in most of the activities. I'm like, what are the ways I can give? What are the ways I can spotlight someone else while this is going on, to highlight the great things they're doing, versus just trying to be like, hey, I'm trying to run a podcast, I'm trying to run a business right now, look at me. I'm trying to put the focus on everyone else. That's where my head's at right now.
Yeah. And it's so easy to get overwhelmed with everything that's happening right now. And I know I look at the doctors and the nurses and the people that are on the front lines that are doing the really, really hard work. And I'm like, what can I do? I'm useless. And I could easily go down that path, and all of us could, who maybe are not on the front lines, but we all have something we can give, and we all have people that we can serve at any time, really, not just during a crisis. So it's really thinking about who can I serve and who can I give to during this time? If it's not on the front lines, who is that instead? So.
You know, that's a great point. Like, and I think I was just talking to someone on Manufacturing Happy Hour recently, and the topic of like wartime leadership has come up. Like, how do you lead a team through uncertainty? And I was asking him, it's like, you work for a manufacturing company. They're based out of Brooklyn, New York and whatnot. I'm like, how are you leading through uncertainty right now? And he said, you know, one of the big things we're trying to do is make sure that our team knows they have a direct impact on what's, you know, on the things that are going to help solve COVID-19. For example, in the manufacturing industry, businesses like food and beverage, businesses like the medical manufacturing industry, whether it's medical device manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, all of those industries are having an impact on what's going on with COVID-19 right now. So creating kind of that frontline mindset, saying, hey, you know, times are tough right now, but we're doing our part in the solution, has been a big motivator for a lot of the manufacturing leaders that I've talked to right now.
That's awesome. And I don't think a lot of us would even be aware of that unless you were highlighting those stories and those organizations that are doing that. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I pivoted on when this situation happened. It's like, all right, there's a lot of uncertainty. It's, you know, it's scary to work right now in a lot of ways. People don't know if their job's going to be here in a week or 2 weeks, and navigating that. And I'm like, you know what? I have a platform that people in the manufacturing industry are listening to. Why not I feature people that have the stories around the type of leadership that's required for this time and place right now? And, you know, I know we're getting into some serious topics right now, but I guess COVID-19 is a serious thing, but still trying to keep that playful social element to it as well. You know, it's not like I'm going into these interviews and, you know, half-assing them, for lack of a better word. They're well prepared. Right. It's just, I'm doing it through a medium that makes it more approachable than, say, just, you know, two people talking over a Skype connection per se. That happy hour element is a huge piece of getting that message out there in a fun fashion.
Yeah, you're still doing it in the Chris way, and that's exactly what we need right now.
Exactly. No, there's the only way I know how to do things in this world is in the Chris Luecke way. So that's all I've got. So I'm just trying to play to my strengths right now, and some of the work I've already created, trying to get into my own creativity, figure out what are new things I can be doing, and it's been an adventure so far, to say the least.
Good. And like me, you are also an extrovert, and maybe I know for me that's been challenging at times with this whole situation, because you know, it's great talking to friends over Zoom and FaceTime, but it's not the same as being in person. So how are you personally dealing with this whole situation in terms of how you're finding connection, or how are you expressing yourself fully during this time?
Great question. I've got two answers to this. One is going to play into some of the things I've mentioned before. So I talked about how I'm hosting virtual happy hours. I've done that with my friends, but I'm also doing it with my day job and my industry as well, bringing together the leaders that are in our space. And I'll give you a very specific example. I don't know when the podcast recording is coming out, but I'm hosting these on a weekly basis, and the event that I'm doing tomorrow, Thursday, April 9th, whatever it is, I'm co-hosting it with a company, and the CEO of that company that makes fashionable work boots for women in industry, which is it's one of the best solutions I've ever seen in that space, because it's not just about the work boots. It's helping women feel confident in industry, where in the past they'd have to wear bulky work shoes designed for men, which, you know, how you dress impacts how you feel. And this company, it's called Xena Workwear, for anyone that might be interested. They've taken that problem head on, and they're designing workwear designed specifically for women. And tomorrow we're really, we're going to be talking about how they've had to be creative as a small business during this crazy time. And the reason we're hosting it that way is I was hosting some of these happy hours on my own for a while. So I wanted to start spotlighting other groups like I had mentioned before. So now I have a co-host for all of these. But getting back to your question, this is one of two ways that I'm scratching that extroverted itch right now, is hosting events that are, let's say, as live as they can be right now, like this, while spotlighting other people in the process. The second thing I'm doing is, this is totally in line with your play theme, is I came up with this crazy idea inspired by a show called Tiger King, which everyone has heard
I've
of.
never heard of it.
By this point. Exactly. So I know we were talking before the interview. You haven't watched it yet. You're not alone. I know a lot of people that haven't dove in yet. It's a very quick watch when you do it. Like, you'll be done with it.
I can't bring myself to watch a whole episode because it is so outlandish. It is.
I think that's why it's been the perfect show for an extrovert, just because all the characters on there are just out of this world. I'm like, yes, these are the type of out of this world people I need to see right now to like feel some of that extroverted relief. But I jumped on a Zoom call with one of my friends that was hosting a Tiger King specific Zoom call at one point. And
what is a Tiger King specific Zoom call? Like, everyone had to come, come to talk about Tiger King? What does that mean?
I mean, basically, yeah, you basically had, it wasn't a set agenda, but you talk about how you felt about the characters, how you felt about the outcomes. There's a lot that's up to interpretation in this show, Louise. Anyway, so we're on there, and I was looking around my room, which we're in right now, because this is where I spend most of my time these days. And I'm like, wait a second, cowboy hat, sunglasses, pink shirt. I have all of the essential pieces for a Joe Exotic costume right out of the gate. So I put it on. I drew a little mustache on myself, and I showed up to the call as Joe Exotic and played a song from the show. And then I jumped back off and got back in, washed the mustache off, got back into my regular character. And on a whim, so long story short, I dressed as Joe Exotic on a Zoom call. But I'm like, wouldn't it be funny if I posted this to Craigslist? It's like, hey, I will crash your Zoom call dressed as Joe Exotic, play a song, and leave if you pay me $100 for me to donate to charity. I just posted it out on Craigslist for the heck of it, and shared it on Facebook and things like that. And I mean, just within the past 3 days or so, I've already raised over $500 to benefit the James Beard Foundation, restaurant hospitality worker relief fund, doing this. And I might have to bust it out here a little later on.
I love that.
It's because I used to play in bands and things like that. And I miss that jumping on stage, that nervousness you get during those first 5 minutes where you're putting the guitar on, getting up there, the lights are on you, and you're like, you got to get off to a good start. And
right.
These, when you're bombing someone's Zoom call, typically, I mean, I've been hired by law firms, software companies, 40th birthday parties. It's been a mix of social and professional, ad agencies, them too. They've brought me onto these calls, and it is the funniest thing when you're showing up there dressed as Joe Exotic, and everyone thinks you're some random guy bombing their call. So it's that adrenaline
the best thing
rush.
Ever.
Yeah, it's the adrenaline. It's filling the adrenaline rush I used to get by going on stage, doing any type of social event. So it's been nice that it's been going on.
Gosh, so Radchinsky on Instagram just said that's ridiculous, and yes, that is fully true.
Oh yeah,
and
hey Kelly.
I love that because it is scratching that itch that you have to be a performer, to be to jump on stage, like you said. And while you can't do that in front of people right now, there's other ways to do that. And you found a way to do it that is in line with your personality and in a way that also raises money for charity. How fantastic. And that's such a playful way to look at life and to take opportunities where you can.
It's wild. I'm pulling from the three biggest trends of COVID-19 right now. It's everyone's on Zoom calls, everyone's watched Tiger King, and oh yes, we need to help those that are on the front line or the businesses that are suffering the most. Let's try to find a way to weave those all together in one. And that's It's what it is.
Yeah. Oh, and that's part of being playful, I think. And it's not necessarily doing it like what you just did is not going to be right for everyone, but I think
Sure.
finding the ways that you can give back and make an impact on others in a way that expresses your full personality, that is what play is about to me. So
Hmm.
I love that story, and that's amazing. I think that's
It's been a lot of fun.
holy
If
crap. I think this could really go off. This could be like a whole nother side gig for you.
I feel like, and well, it's one of those side gigs that only has a finite amount of time that can last. Because let's be honest, within 2 or 3 weeks, Tiger King will be old news. This is something I got to like, if I'm going to capitalize on it, I got to do it fast.
Yes, but there could be another trend that comes about, another Netflix show that gets big, and then you could jump on that.
This is true. Maybe this is starting a career as like a viral trend, like someone that jumps on the bandwagon and spins it in some way. Who knows? Who knows where this is going to go right now? But it's
Who
been a lot of
knows?
fun so far, and it has. I mean, I can't really think of a better extroverted outlet than crashing Zoom parties right now. So it's been fun.
Good for you, Chris. Well, anything else that you can share around how you are dealing with this time as a creative, and how maybe what you're learning about yourself and how you can help others get through this time right now?
Yeah, what I'm learning about myself right now, I think the biggest thing is I was talking about earlier in the conversation how some people have been putting off projects for a while. And I feel like this has been a kick for my urgency around doing things that I can serve my industry, my customers, random people on Zoom calls, whatever it has been. I'd say it's been like a skills inventory to an extent. I'm about to do this, and I'd be curious what your audience thinks about this, but maybe like taking this as an opportunity to write down all the things you're really good at and try to figure out how you can repurpose those to serve people, particularly while we're remote and not able to get in front of people. But the reality is everyone needs to think ahead too, because we got a couple more months of this. Who knows? We don't really know the time frame, but eventually things will return to a more normal state. So I've been trying to take that time to get to bed early, get up early, so I have that time in the morning to really reflect on the different things I can be doing to focus on my business rather than being in my business all the time.
Mm,
So
yeah, I think this time has created both urgency and space, which we don't get those together. And I can't
yeah,
think of any other time we can get both those things, right? Urgency in the sense that we now understand that life can change and we only have today really
yeah,
to focus on, because things can change tomorrow. So urgency in that
hmm,
sense, and also space in the sense that we are very constrained right now to our homes. So we have the space and to think about what we may want to be urgent about now. So it's this
right.
really interesting juxtaposition of two different things. And who knows if we'll ever get it again in our lifetime. So,
Hmm.
hopefully hopefully everyone can find ways to take advantage of it. I know not everyone is in the greatest mental space right now, which I want to have
Hmm.
empathy for too. And you may just need to sit around and watch multiple episodes of Tiger King, and that's it. And that's okay
Right.
too. But if you
Yeah.
have the energy for it, maybe take advantage of having both this urgency and this space right now.
And I definitely want to give credit where a massive amount of credit is due to all the people that are on the front lines, because for over half the population, we're just stuck at home right now. We're not even stuck at home, we're safe at home right now is the
Absolutely.
easiest way to describe it. Like, it is an absolute privilege to have what we have right now. We got a roof over our head, we have the ability to social distance and things like that. There's a lot of creativity that's come from that, and kudos to all the people that are doing it. But we have to give a shout out to all the people that this is the busiest time they've ever been in their life, and the last thing they can do is think about, how do I restructure my life for after this? How do I take advantage of new
Right.
opportunities? They're just literally going at it right now. So everything we're talking about is definitely from a place of privilege, and I love how people are using that ability to do good things in this capacity. But this was just a long way of saying kudos to all the people that are literally on the front lines right now addressing this.
100%. We love all of you that are working your booties off for us out there and keeping us all safe and healthy and saving lives, really. So,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, Chris, you're amazing, and I'm so glad we're friends. Sad that we can't have a beer together in real life right now, but hopefully we'll be able to do that soon. Can you play us out with this?
Yeah. Hold on. Give me 1 second. This is easy. I do this all the time now. So step one, you got to put the fluorescent pink shirt on. So.
And you already had that. You didn't even have to go out and get it.
Oh yeah. Oh, I had all of this. Even the silliest parts of this. So we got this going. Let's get this on.
Amazing.
Get buttoned up. We want to look proper here.
Anyone that's like scrolling through Facebook and all of a sudden sees you getting dressed is
really weird.
Is wondering what is happening right now.
It was just putting on a long sleeve shirt. The next piece, very important, is a Bret Michaels inspired cowboy hat. Everyone needs one of those. So had that. So let's throw this sucker on, and then let's see where we get into at this point. I would say sunglasses are next, but that's going to be hard to see. So let's
that's true.
Let's do this first. I'm going to use my my phone as a mirror here really quickly to get a mustache drawn on. Oh yeah. All right.
Oh my goodness. Too bad you don't have a wig.
Yeah, I know. That's you know what? When you're pulling from your closet, like you can only get a certain amount of stuff. There we go. All right.
Oh my goodness.
That's the Joe Exotic goatee right there. So you got that piece, and then sunglasses, and you got to throw on your Oklahoman accent. Hey y'all, how you doing? And then you are Mr. Joe Exotic, all in 2 freaking minutes.
Oh my goodness. Transformed.
Then after you bomb a Zoom call and you're like, oh man, that Carol Baskin's really been slowing me down. I've been having trouble with my tigers and serving expired Walmart meat to my crew. Then you throw on a guitar and play a song that you definitely wrote. And it goes a little something like this. It's called I Saw a Tiger. Are you going to take us out of here, Louise, now while I'm playing?
Yes, I'm just going to let you play us out of here.
All right, sounds good. Well, since I won't get a chance to say goodbye, bye, y'all. Thanks so much for being on this podcast today. This song's called I Saw a Tiger. Here we go. Tell all the hunters to lay down their guns. Tell them that the tiger needs a little bit of love. 'Cause I saw a tiger, now I understand. I saw the tiger, and the tiger saw a man. All right.
Started this conversation with Chris Luecke, ended it with Joe Exotic. Couldn't ask for more.
This has been fun, but as Joe Exotic, y'all, I gotta say it's been real good. But I gotta get back to prison now, so I'll see y'all later.
Peace out, buddy.
Thanks a bunch, Louise. Bye.
Are you looking for more play in your life? Make sure you're subscribed to the Recess Life podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or any of the podcast platforms. You can also find the video interviews on YouTube. Don't forget to leave a review. Your feedback is so important to me, and it helps others to find the podcast. You can also follow the conversation on Instagram at The Recess Life. And lastly, you can go to therecesslife.com where you'll find all the episodes and show notes on each of our guests. I hope this podcast helps you to become a little more playful today than you were yesterday. Until next time, don't forget to get out and play today.